Hi, this is Jahara and you're watching another episode of In the Line of Wire. Dr. Umar Saif is somebody that a lot of you have heard about and many of you sort of look up to. He's a professor at the Lahore University of Management Sciences and he's also a serial entrepreneur. On my visit to Lahore earlier this week, I got a chance not only to talk to him but also to talk to the team that works with him on the various initiatives that he started and that they are executing on. He's also set up an entrepreneurship center, or more like an incubation center. So let's hear about how it all began, why did he come back to Pakistan when he had a great job at MIT, and what he and his young team is doing at LUMS.
My name is Umar Saif. I teach at LUMS. I'm an associate professor in the computer science department. I came back to Pakistan almost 3 years ago in late 2006. Late 2005, early 2006.
Right.
And in US I used to work at MIT and I worked there for a good 4.5 years.
Right.
And before that I did my grad school in University of Cambridge in England.
Okay.
So coming to Pakistan that's typically the first question, you know.
Yes.
What the hell went wrong with you? You know, what bit
No,
you decided to come back to Pakistan?
No, what was such, I mean, it must have been a brilliant moment when you
It was
decided.
a brilliant moment.
Yeah.
It was just one of those moments. There were a lot of things coming together.
Okay.
I think Pakistan, we always wanted to come back to Pakistan for one. You know, settling in US was never on the cards.
Okay.
It was just a matter of when.
Right.
Then I wanted to be close to my parents. I got married to someone who wanted to move back to Pakistan. We had the first child and wanted to raise him in Pakistan and so on. And I've also come to a point in my career where I have to decide whether I want a longer term tenure track appointment in a university in US or do I want to move back to Pakistan. And I guess sort of going back and forth in this, and we vacillated for a reasonably long period of time on this, and then just basically took the plunge. So coming to Pakistan, I don't know how much of that I want to say on camera, but I applied to LUMS, which I did my undergrad many years ago. I was actually the first kid from LUMS who went out to do the PhD. Right. But when I applied to LUMS, they took 8 months to process my application or something like that.
Okay.
That's just Pakistan.
Okay.
And so I basically landed in Pakistan without a real job offer.
Okay.
And turned up at LUMS and spoke to people who taught me before and said, and they said you can start tomorrow and so on. But it was a huge risk in many ways coming back to Pakistan.
More a leap of faith, I guess.
It is a leap of faith. Right. And for anyone, if you watch Fox News or watch CNN or read BBC, you would think that it is a big leap of faith coming back to Pakistan. But once we were here, I didn't come here with ambitions to have an entrepreneurial life. I had academic training, and that's what I wanted to do in Pakistan, build a large research group and do influential research. And I guess I was very lucky to have a group of very smart people who I had a privilege of working with in the first year or so. As soon as I came here, I applied for a research grant from Microsoft Research. This was the first time they gave money to a research project in Pakistan.
Right.
It wasn't a lot of money, but it went a fair distance in a country like Pakistan. I hired 4 people, and they worked for me without pay for the first few months because the Microsoft money took some time to be paid to LUMS.
Right.
But when it did come through, they worked in very small salaries. One of them actually now works for Zafar, and he thanks me that he's hired him because he's a smart guy.
Okay.
And these 4 people did this thing for me, which became a big hit. We got 7 papers out of it. We won many awards, and it was featured in the New Scientist magazine. This is the first time New Scientist wrote about a research project in Pakistan. It was featured in MIT Tech Review. This was the first time Tech Review wrote about a research project in Pakistan. So we won the MIT Technometer Award eventually because of the work that we did, and most of that work is in improving internet availability and bandwidth and accessibility in countries like Pakistan.
Right.
I don't want to get into research too much, but we must realize that internet is kind of is biased against countries like Pakistan.
Right.
Because we have to pay very heavy international link costs to access internet. and we have some monopoly paths that our messages must traverse through. So we get very poor performance as well as pay a lot of money to access the internet. And it turns out not a lot of people have looked at that problem. And we came up with now a series of fairly radical solutions to try and fix that without actually, changing the internet as such, but actually layering things on top that would mitigate some of those issues.
Right.
So that's what most of my research was in. And then we recently now got money from US State Department to expand that and collaborate with the University of California, Berkeley, with a very influential group there that's focused on developing water technologies. And we're doing a whole series of things there, ranging from rural connectivity to broadband access in Pakistan, to computers and machines and cell phones that you could use as computing devices for farmers and so on. So it's a 3-year, fairly comprehensive, interesting program, and that's so we kind of well set in terms of our research agendas.
Right.
And that's not because of what I do or what I've done in the past, it's because of the people I work with. Coming to Pakistan, you wouldn't realize that there's just so much talent in this country. There's just a whole lot of brilliant, enthusiastic people. You've been to my lab,
right,
and you've seen people, sort of sleep there in beanbags and so on. They practically live there,
right,
and sleep there and work there, 18 hours a day to have an impact in their research niche. And I think we've come a fair distance in trying to accomplish that. And I don't think we're very far away from putting Pakistan on the world map of ICTD research, which is the area that I'm mostly focused on these days. So coming back to Pakistan wasn't a mistake.
No.
It hasn't been a disaster, despite whatever you hear in the news. And I think if someone like me can do it, then certainly many more brilliant people, smarter people can do it much better. It's just a matter of taking that leap of faith, biting the bullet, coming back, basically digging your heels, knuckling down, and getting it done.
Right.
And I think you can easily accomplish it. It is the 6th most populous country in the world. There are a lot of very brilliant people that live in this country. There's a lot of opportunity both locally and also doing things that have international value.
Right.
So that, as far as my academic career is
right,
concerned, and that's going reasonably well. And I would advise any sort of potential migrant to US or a reverse migrant to US to seriously consider coming back to Pakistani academic universities and kind of resurrecting our academic our academic institutions in Pakistan.
Right.
Because I think they're now ripe for that kind of input. On the side, I'm lucky that I carry a strong CV, so a lot of people walk through my door every day,
right,
and offer to work with me at times without money,
right,
as long as they work on something that they think will have impact, either in terms of visibility or wealth. And hence I ended up kind of incubating 4 companies over the last 2 to 3 years.
right.
The first one is Bumping, which makes contextual chat software. The goal is pretty ambitious. The goal is that you can go to any website in the world and chat with anyone else who's browsing the same web page as you at that point in time.
So literally bumping into them.
So you can bump into people on the internet.
Right.
So just as Google would introduce you to content that interests you, we try and introduce you to people who have very similar interests.
Okay.
And we infer those interests by basically observing browsing habits on the internet and the websites that you go to. We started out doing that, and we realized that you need sort of 100,000 people using such a software before it even starts making sense for someone. In other words, you go bump into websites where there's no one, and basically you'll stop using it.
Right.
So as a first step, we're now giving out basically chat software, free chat software to websites all over the world. They can embed on their website and enable visitors on that website to discover each other and chat with each other.
Right.
It turns out that's a reasonably big market. The market leader in that space is called Userplane, which is an AOL subsidiary, and that's worth $100 million. It was worth $100 million in 2005. It must be worth a lot more now. So there's and the market is so big. Almost all the blogs, all the news websites, all the social networks need some sort of live interaction between their users.
Right.
And we've built a large, fairly sophisticated cloud-based chat architecture at this point in time, which scales very nicely, which is very nicely done, some of the user interface, and the ease with which you can customize it and embed it on a website.
Right.
And we've had moderate success so far in people taking this and putting it on their website. we've just started to think of how to try and monetize that. So that's Bump In. Out of Bump In, we incubated another company called Find Along. That's also a very ambitious company. The goal of that company is very close to my heart, because as a researcher I end up doing a lot of Google queries every day, trying to understand new topics, investigate new emerging hot areas, and I end up doing lots of different permutations of keywords, different queries. I go to different web pages, I go to different forums, and kind of assemble a stack of information about topics that interest me. And most of the time that I want to share that with people who work with me, other professors, other researchers, students, and so on. And that's also what most organizations are. Whether you're in a startup, in a bank, in a corporate research company, in a university, you do a fair amount of research, about learning about new things, and you typically do it with people or for other people. Right. But internet has no real tool that lets you do that. Tagging and bookmarks only go some distance, and they can get disorganized very quickly. And even the nomenclature starts killing you at times. If you say
probably easier to Google again than
to actually go back and look through your bookmarks.
Right.
So we found this company called findalong.com. It's a browser plugin. You install it in your browser, and then you go look for things on the internet, and we automatically record your queries and the pages that you go to, and you can mark some of them as more important than others. You can leave notes, you can tag them, and so on. So you basically assemble now a stack of information as you would otherwise in ad hoc ways. Now I'll give you a tool to assemble this stack of information, embedded with cues that you use, which you used initially to get to that information, so that you can recall it quickly. Okay. And once you build this stack, you can invite other people to join this session, so they can start contributing to this stack. They can leave notes for you. You can talk to them in real time and so on. You can use it for online shopping together. You can use it for online research. You could use it for planning trips. You could use it for collaboration on topics that interest you. Right. So think of this as Google Docs on steroids, or Google Docs in the search space, right. or something that enables collaborative search or team research. Right. And that's our new thing, and you'll probably be embedding a little promo video as part of this. I would. And that's basically our new baby. It's also it's a very ambitious thing to do. We could be some fraction of the search market, which is very lucrative, very big, and that it'll be very cool if we can get there. Right. So that's Find Along. Then we've incubated 2 more companies which are not as risky. Right. And they're also locally focused, so now we want to expand internationally. Right. Let me tell you first about Chopal. Right. Chopal is something that we incubated almost 1.5 years ago. And this was basically a student project at LUMS. There were a bunch of kids. I'm not being patronizing, but so these were actually 18-year-olds, right, who came to me, the sophomores at LUMS, who came to me and said, we want to learn Java programming. Right. Could you suggest how we can go about and do that? And I'm typically very close to my students, and I said, the best way to learn programming is to complete a little project in a programming language, and by the end of it, you have mastered the language. And pick something that's interesting so that you have some motivation to finish it. They said, do you have any ideas? And I threw an idea at them, which was basically very Twitter-like. Right. But Twitter had not happened at that point. Twitter is a very recent phenomenon. Right. And I said, why don't we make something where you can send one SMS to an interest group, and other people can come subscribe to that interest group, and that SMS is broadcast to everyone who subscribed to that interest group. Right. So think of this as Google Groups or Yahoo Groups on SMS, or mailing lists on SMS. Right. And we then put a whole bunch of features to make it usable and useful for people and so on. And we don't charge people anything. It's a free service. You can just make a little group for yourself and start sending messages to your group of friends, to your colleagues, to co-workers, people watching the same cricket game. We exchanged over 70,000 messages in 2 hours. Right. During this T20 final. Because
that must have been an exciting time.
And every so often we're really worried that our systems will.
But they were tested.
They were really tested this time. Very interesting tags. You can buy and sell second-hand stuff on Chopal. You can send security alerts or bomb threat alerts on Chopal. It's a moderated channel, so we keep spam load and so on. It's used by 350 organizations in Pakistan. It's used in cities that I had not even heard of. When we started looking at the demographics of people who use it, in small schools, large schools, and so on. It's used by security forces occasionally. It's used by political parties. Everyone, so everyone you could think of. So people make groups of interest and then send messages to each other. And you send only one message and it broadcasts to let's say 1,000 people. You only pay for the one SMS that you send, and therefore we save both your thumbs as well as your credit. That's our month. So that's
how do you make money off such a?
So we hope to at some stage make money by contextual advertising over SMS.
Right.
See, advertising on SMS is a tricky business.
Right.
As most of the people, I absolutely hate spam. I don't want unsolicited messages coming to me. However, Google got advertising right. You could, when you search for something, they show you relevant ads.
Yes.
Okay, and you don't mind seeing those ads because you're getting a free service and you're getting some paid links for that service as well, which are very relevant to what you're looking at. So on Chopal is very similar. So once you send a message to someone, based on what the group is and what the demographic of the recipient is, we append an ad with the SMS. So your SMS goes through. But as part of the SMS, we append a small ad, 20 characters, 40 character ad at the end of that SMS of something that is very relevant to that message and to the age group and gender of the recipient. Okay. So something that wouldn't put you off.
Okay.
And at this point in Chopal, we're sending almost close to 5 million SMS per month, so 50 lakh SMS per month.
That's a lot.
And we have 150,000 people who use Chopal, and it's growing at an exponential rate. Every so often, I have to pump in more cash to buy the new servers and so on. Right. And there was a time when it was student projects, so we had a bunch of modems through which we were sending SMS. But now we have integration with telco interconnects. And we also, trying to now formalize this contextual advertising business over SMS.
Right.
By the way, this is very similar to Twitter in US. People use it for Twitter like broadcast as well.
Right.
It's very similar to SMS Gupshup in India, which is like a $50 billion company.
Right.
It's and Google already does this in India. So if Googles and Yahoos were interested or serious in advertising to demographics like Pakistan, it has to be over SMS. We are the 4th largest users of SMS in the world.
Wow.
That's amazing. That's how big it is. And I've told you there's a smaller project that has grown 50 million SMS, 5 million SMSs per month. And at times you have to sort of beat people, when we're growing and didn't have enough infrastructure, we do beat people away with a stick, keep them at bay from Chopal. Otherwise, they'll take the system down. That is how quickly it was growing. So now we're giving it out to schools and colleges to coordinate their staff, communicate with parents. We're giving it to retail stores. It's just expanding at an exponential rate. But it's also a great advertising opportunity for advertisers. Right. You pay 8.9 rupees per eyeball on mainstream media. We give you ads for what 1/8, 1/9 of that price. And there's a very high hit rate. And
it's to a special group.
A special group.
That is relevant.
Therefore, there's a very high hit rate.
Yeah.
So the message says the message came from Jahan on a topic that I subscribed to. So I will read that SMS, and any ad which is relevant to that message, I'll also look at. So it's very highly effective SMS advertising, and that's how we hope to monetize this service someday. At some stage in this interview, you'll be introduced to Asim, who is the CEO of Chopal. Right. He started out as an 18-year-old sophomore who started doing this. You hear of all the Mark Zuckerbergs and so on who founded Facebook at 18 years old. We have someone who's comparable. And hopefully he'll be CEO of $1 million company someday out of Pakistan, locally focused and successful. So you hear him, and he's a real entrepreneur, full of energy, runs around all day, and does deals and business development that never ceases to amaze me. Right. And I mostly just take a back seat and keep pumping cash and clapping for him, and he keeps on doing all these things. And there's Hassan with him, who's a full-time technical guy. But when they started out doing this, there was Ali Rehan and Mariam and Mansoor and Fahad Pervez, and all these guys have contributed from time to time as summer internships or as co-founders of this little startup, and all of them contributed heavily. And I hope that some of them go back to studies every so often and come back and contribute. But I think they'll all be part of this one big successful startup.
Right.
So that's Chopal. I would want Asim to say a little bit of stuff, and then we move on to this incubator thing that we are doing.
Okay.
I think
so Asim, how's it been working and leading the Chopal initiative.
I also want to start from my story.
When you were little
I
and you
was in
wanted
school,
to be an
When
entrepreneur.
he was young, when he was 20 years
So
old.
basically, I got my first personal computer when I was 5.
Right.
Since my dad has been in the industry himself, he runs his own software house.
Okay.
And he's always been the gung-ho type that he wants to do everything himself.
Right.
So he almost encouraged me to do stuff myself, encouraged me to freelance, encouraged me to help in his company and do other stuff. So when I was in school, I got together with a couple of friends and made websites for people and others and other companies.
Right.
And then I always wanted to do an event management company.
Right.
So when I was in A-levels, three of us got together and we made this company. We arranged a few gigs and events and stuff.
What was it called?
It was called Absolute Productions.
Oh, okay. Nice name. Okay.
Okay, so then one of them came to LUMS, the others left for studies abroad, and it all dismantled.
Okay.
Then when I came to LUMS, first year computer science, I took all the courses and nothing really impressed me. So when the year ended, a friend of mine was working with Dr. Umar Saif for a project, a different project, and she told me that you all are bright students, you've been getting A's in all the courses, and 2-3 of us, if you get together and go to him, he might have some ideas for you. So we went to him. We were like 18, 19, average age, and we knew programming, but that was it. We didn't have any business sense, or we didn't have any vision what we wanted to do. So we went to Dr. Umar Saif. He told us a few ideas. I can't share the rest of them, obviously.
Because you might still work on them. Yeah, right.
Maybe in the future.
Right.
So he introduced us. He told us these few ideas. One of them was group SMS.
Right.
His idea was that when he went to Balakot, all the agencies working over there, they had no way to communicate among themselves.
During the earthquake.
During the earthquake.
Right.
So SMS is something that's available on every cell phone, and cell phones work everywhere now in Pakistan.
Right.
So cell phones are still working there, even though landline and other stuff wasn't even possible.
Correct.
So social network on SMS. Now, even for us to conceive that idea, it took us a little while to understand what actually was implying. So when he told us the idea that, okay, I send you an SMS and your phone is connected to the computer to your PC, you read the SMS, process it, and send it to 100 people. So I went back, I hooked up my phone. I happened to have Motorola that connects very easily. So a week later, I had something running. And then he then he liked the idea and he introduced me to 2 other guys. One of them was also from LUMS, but from my batch, but I didn't know him. And one other guy from FAST. So it was myself, Asim and Mariam who started it, and then we were introduced to Fahad from FAST and Ali Rehan. And we got together, we deputed one person for the website, one for this thing, one for that thing, and probably 3-4 months later we had something running.
Okay.
And now, starting our sophomore year, all our friends were probably meeting new people, exploring new grounds
Right.
in LUMS. So, on the other hand, we were spending nights coding. And when we showed them this idea, and we told them to send their name to this number, and they'll get a response immediately. And they would keep asking us, "Yaar, SMS kaun bhej raha hai?
Yeah.
Ye kaun sa banda bithaya hua hai?"
Right.
And it was totally difficult for them to understand that it's possible for a computer to respond automatically.
Right.
And likewise, it took us a long time for people to introduce it to people, to make people understand that it's possible to communicate in groups, basically have Google groups on SMS.
Right.
That you send a message to to something, and it automatically sends it to a lot of people, and you don't have to pay for that. So we started off as a summer project. It took us a while to learn the ropes and to basically evolve the system, since initially it was quite basic that one SMS goes to multiple people. Then we introduced different features, basically turned into an online forum. Now it has an online version as well as an SMS version, and basically we try and turn it into the Twitter of Pakistan.
Okay.
That is our story.
And you have about 5 million users today.
Yes.
Great.
No, not 5.
No, 5 million SMSs we send.
Yeah.
Okay.
We send 5 million SMSs per month, and we have more than 100,000 users.
Okay. And they're all in Pakistan.
They're all in Pakistan.
Okay.
It only works in Pakistan.
Have you done any kind of research as to the age group that's using this?
So between 18 and 24.
Okay.
The age that uses the internet, the age that uses SMS. And Pakistan happens to be the 4th largest center of SMS. So if it can work anywhere, it has to work in Pakistan.
So you're happy that they didn't increase the tax on it?
Definitely happy. Otherwise, we'd have to sell different stuff. One time.
Then there is, so it's chopal.pk, chopall.pk, and you're welcome to look at and use that service. It's very locally relevant.
Right.
Then we incubate another company which I did not plan to incubate.
Right.
It just happened.
Okay.
And that's why I really enjoy telling that story. There was one day that a young man came to my office from FAST and said, I've heard a lot about you and I have an interesting idea and I want to start a company.
Right.
And I said, well, you don't start a company without burning boats. What do you do all day? And he said, I have a day job, a well-paying day job, and I get off around 8 p.m. and then I want to work on the startup. And I was like, 8 p.m. for working all day, you don't have any time to do a real startup.
Right.
You give up your job and do it. And except that, I'm typically not that dismissive, but that day, I just wasn't in a great mood. That doesn't happen every day, but that day I was in a great mood. So I basically just said, you give up your job and I'll become serious about this. And 1 month later, the guy walks into my office and tells me that he's given up his job, a fairly well-paying job, and he isn't, he isn't the son of Bill Gates. He comes from a, a background where I think money is important. But he gave up his job, burnt his boat, said, I want to do this company.
The CEO of CN Report is Sharjeel Ahmed Qureshi, who's a very enthusiastic young man who decided to chuck his job and actually start a business. Just because Dr. Umar Saif was in a bad mood one morning when he went to him and said, I really want to start a company. And he said, you can't do this part-time. You either give up your job and commit yourself. And the young man just went ahead and resigned. So I spoke to Sharjeel Ahmed Qureshi, and here's some of what he said. He also dragged in Adil, whom he phoned one morning and said, hey, why don't you give up your job and join me in this initiative? Let's hear what they had to say. So you found Adil Salim.
Yeah, so I called him up and said that, look, I'm going to tell you something very foolish, but I'm going to do it. People have been very harsh on me, but I know you are a great programmer, you might understand. I want to do a company. And I was expecting, what? He said, okay, go on. I told him what I want to do is have a collaborative mapping tool. It has got a real value. And I believe that if we do something really good, people would love to use it, and we won't have to have a marketing team and a sales team. It would go widely and people would love to use it, and somehow we'll make money. We don't need to have a business plan. Google never had a business plan.
At that time, we didn't know what's a business plan.
But somebody
told us you need to have a business plan. And
Right.
we said, we'll make money.
Okay.
So
first let us create
Let
this.
us make something, then we'll write our business plan. The way we did our assignments and projects in the university.
Right. So what did you think when Sharjeel called you? What was
well,
going through your mind when he was saying all this to you?
Well, just to compliment, just to add this to Sharjeel's story, I've always wanted to do a company myself as well.
Okay.
I named my first company. I didn't actually do a company. I named my first company when I installed Windows 3.1 on my computer.
God, that was years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. So because they had a company field there, so I said, okay, oh great, I can make a company for myself and register a copy of Windows in that name.
Okay.
So
what was it called?
It was called Mask, M-A-S-Q,
Okay.
shortened from my full name. So,
Okay.
but it never really materialized.
It didn't go any
Yes,
further than
exactly.
that, just the name.
After my graduation, I wanted to do a company with some of my friends. There were a couple of my friends who were really good at programming, and we throughout our graduation we stayed together. However, most of the people told me that you need to have 5 to 6 year experience and then start a company. Since most of these are really good seniors, some of these were people I really admired. So I thought maybe this is the way. So I went to the industry and started working, and after a couple of years I realized that this is no different than running my own business. Most particularly, in the second half of my career, I joined a somewhat smallish company. It's called Mantak Systems, and that really helped me to understand how business works in small companies.
Right.
And at initial stages, particularly the CEO Hashim was really helpful. And after some time, I realized that all those people were not telling me the truth. You don't need to have a 6-year experience to run a company. All you need is passion and your ability to make something that people want.
Right.
And that I can do.
Right.
So basically, when Sharjeel came to me and said that this is what I want to do, I didn't know how it was going to happen.
but I knew that we can make this happen.
Okay.
So I believed in ourselves that we can make something, and if we make something that is useful, the money should follow.
Okay.
Basically, that's the best thing, that best advice that we came up with. So we started reading a lot of blogs and a lot of articles by the people and entrepreneurs who had actually made it through. People like Paul Graham, Guy Kawasaki, and even stories of Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and all the people like that.
Who all started in a garage.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So they all started in a garage. In fact, we saw a picture of Larry Page and Sergey Brin where they had the computers placed on the tractor tires. So there was a time there when Google was a small company like that.
Right.
And we said to ourselves, look, every company starts from a small scale, and maybe we'll start small and then we'll grow big. And we don't see any reason to delay it any further, because another thing that he told me, we found out that the average age of entrepreneurs is between 23 to 25 years. So
Soon you would be too old.
yes, exactly. At that point, I was already 1 year older than that average line. So I was like, okay, so I'm already.
If I'm going to do it, I should do it now.
I'm 1 year late, so okay, I'll have to do something.
But what did your family, your parents have to say when you said, okay, I'm now going to give up this good job that I have and I'm going to start, my own company where I will be paid nothing and I will work 24 hours every day, 7 days a week.
To start with, I was just that brilliant kid in the family who always had the highest marks. So I was considered. It wasn't really it was really good of them. I consider it a gift that I had a great family who understood, who actually didn't understand actually what I was trying to do, but they were really supportive of me, and they said, okay, if you want to do this, and we'll support you. But we don't know what you are doing, and you know the risk in that, so you take care of all that, and we just
We trust you.
We trust you that you are doing something right. You are intelligent. You are brilliant. You have been throughout your life, in your student life.
And this was how long ago?
This was 2 years ago.
And what do they say now?
Well, they say that they still don't understand how the business works, but I give them the good news and they are happy.
I had same kind of advantage,
Yes.
Okay.
but in a very different manner. So I never had a good GPA because I was always working on something else. And
You're one of those school dropouts. Well, not quite, but
I
yeah.
couldn't make it to getting dropped out.
Right.
But yes, I had a low GPA, and everybody in my university knew that I had a low GPA, but I could do something big.
And I said, okay, how do we support you? And I said, okay, you seem like a great guy. Why don't you TA for one of my courses? And I'm teaching a course where you're teaching Lisp. Lisp is not in vogue in Pakistan. Many people don't understand or appreciate the value of Lisp. But he did. He's a real and he knew Lisp, and he then spent a lot of time learning it. So he started TAing for my course, so we started paying him a little bit. And he brought his computer, and in spare time he used to hack on the stuff. And the first company he founded was a collaborative mapping company, and then I advised him not to do too much of that because Google entered that space and sort of killed that market completely. And then he did another Facebook app which was moderately successful. And then I became more and more serious about them because he convinced another friend of his to come join him. He also gave him a good, well-paying job. And then another friend of theirs who was also working somewhere to come join them. The three of them, and I was very impressed. These guys were working really hard. They're working 18 hours a day, and they were selling, their personal items, their Game Boys and their cars, their tires of their cars, and whatnot to keep them going. And
that's commitment.
That's real commitment.
Yeah.
And they just kept on impressing me day after day. And then one day I just sat them down.
This was sort of 8 months after they
8 months after they had their fun.
Right.
And I said, okay, I think you've done very well for yourselves, but if you wanted a real startup, I think here is an opportunity that you can go after. It's something that I'm very passionate about. For the longest time, I believe that we should not be hostages to what the BBC's reporters have to tell us in terms of news items from Pakistan. News should come from common citizens like you and me.
Right.
And we should both report news and determine its importance.
Right.
And I think that's what websites like Dig and Delicious have taught us.
Right.
If you empower people to tell us what they find interesting, that is at times much more valuable than mainstream news.
Right.
So we started building a service which would let common citizens like you and me to report news from their cell phones, send emails or go on the web and report news. Other people come and vote on these news items, can leave comments, interact with people.
And send pictures.
And send pictures
Right.
and videos.
Right.
And we also make a little social network around emerging news stories and so on. So it's a whole social media platform where people report news, people determine its importance, people help you disseminate news and so on. And it turns out that the media industry is basically dying in the US. The cost of gathering news far exceeds the cost of printing a newspaper and sending it out to people. Right. So they're all now being web focused, they're all going to web, except that they don't know how to make the real use of the web technology, because web is two-way, unlike a paper-based paper. Right. On the web, you can actually report news as well. Right. And CNN caught on. They have CNN iReport, which is a citizen journalism service. And when we were doing it, CNN came up with iReport, which was great because now the market leader has bought into that idea independently, and therefore we can go to someone else and say, hey, CNN does this, they're not idiots, they make money from this. Right. And we have a platform that would enable you to do something very similar. So this company is called CN Report, SENREPORT.com. CN Report, it's again an $8 domain name. It's something that you could buy out very cheaply. Right. And Shaji, Yasir and Adil are the three main guys who execute this. And they built this platform, and we started covering events in Pakistan. People started sending us news, and eventually we were noticed by mainstream media houses in Pakistan, and now they're all negotiating with us in terms of giving them platform to enable them to run something like this. Right. Sama is their first client, and isama.tv is powered by CM Report, and isama is a very successful citizen journalism service. We also are negotiating with many other companies.
Is it difficult to sell to
local
media companies?
Very tough. Because international companies already see that they're dying unless they go to the internet and make full use of the two-way nature of the internet. In Pakistan, the threat is, they don't see the threat as an imminent threat, because they're still making money from paper-based newspapers. Right. So it's a matter of kind of educating them, right. Telling them that this is not too far off. Right. If you were serious about getting sensational eyewitness, real breaking stories, you want eyewitness accounts. You right. want people to send news from their cell phone.
Right. And you can't have that many people out there so that you will be at the right place at the right time.
All the time.
All the time.
Even if you were the biggest media house in Pakistan, who typically breaks news before other news agencies, you still can't have your reporter on the ground for every breaking news story. Right. And for that, you need citizens to report news. And that's what CN Report is. And I think we've had some success with finally Sama going live with the service. I think we'll have success with other companies. But we want to now expand internationally very quickly. Right. And also try and partner with another very successful startup in Pakistan and see if we can leverage on their platform for reporting pictures and multimedia news items and so on. Right. And combine the two in a holistic, comprehensive social media solution that companies like Fox News and BBCs and Washington Post can then can license and make full use of. So that's CM Report. But this interview is not really about me. Okay. This interview is actually about people who work with me, who I am hugely proud of. Right. These are the kids that I think will go on and do just great things in life. My role is very simple. My role is to make them realize that they're worth more than a 30,000 rupees job in a cubicle. Right. For the rest of their life. They're worth more than working in an outsourcing company. Right. They can be innovative, they can think on their own, and they can work hard and compete with the very best in Pakistan, the very best internationally. There is no reason why we cannot incubate an HP or a Google from Pakistan. Right. In all honesty, I cannot see a single reason why that's not possible. Right. And I've still not given up hopes of building a $100 million company out of Pakistan. And I think one day we will. Right. And it won't be because I want to do it. It'll be because these young, brilliant people who burn their boards and are enthusiastic about building these huge, successful companies out of Pakistan. That are not outsourcing companies. They are companies that build products that disrupt the existing behavior of people in using technology. And such disruptive technology we can come up with. I think CN Report is a great example. Chopal is a great example. We're going to basically shake the advertising market in Pakistan to its roots very soon.
Great.
We've certainly changed the way people socially network or coordinate in countries like Pakistan. Chopal was used in all the emergency long marches, protests, when there were media bans. There was no way for people to communicate. It is used by people for rescue efforts. When there was earthquake in Balakot, Chopal was used. In the IDP situation, Chopal is heavily used. And therefore, it is enabling people, to sort of have a completely different way to use technology and have a tangible social impact of a technology like this. And that itself is reward enough. And hopefully someday we'll also make money. And more than me, the kids who are doing this with me will make money. And they'll become beacons of success for other people to follow.
So all of them have a stake in the startup?
All of them have heavy stake in this. Okay. And as I told you, my role, I have a full-time job at LUMS, and I'm really passionate about doing research. And that consumes, many hours of my day. So unfortunately, I just don't have a lot of time to spend with these companies. So I'm not a CEO or a CTO or a CFO, anything in these companies. Some of them, are kind enough to come and consult me every so often. My role is typically in giving them initial ideas or helping them refine their ideas initially, in encouraging them to keep at it, in providing them funds when they need it. And now we are formalizing a space where you can basically move into a ready to use office space and be surrounded by other entrepreneurs.
So this is the incubation center?
This is the incubation center. Now that I've done 4 of these companies, I think there is, I realized that there is certainly potential for actually having a formalized incubator where people walk in with ideas and walk out with $100 million companies. And why not?
Why not?
We had space. My dad built this space, and he was kind enough to give it to me. And it has many more rooms than we can occupy ourselves. It is 13,000 square feet of covered space, and now we are getting all 4 companies to be co-located there. Well, there'll be all the amenities that you need for a startup. But more than that, you'll be surrounded by like-minded people. And I think that's most important.
That's very important. Yeah.
For instance, in US, there is the Y Combinator model. They give you $10,000 over summers and surround you by like-minded people who come and work on sort of startups. And some of them have gone on to become really successful. And likewise, there is the plug-and-play tech center in the valley, which does something very similar. And they've incubated many successful startups. So this is our little experiment in Lahore. People come in, we let them have the majority of the stake in the company. We provide them some money, encouragement, inspiration by people around them, and just then basically take the back seat and clap for them when they succeed.
Great. Now, all your companies are now funded. That's very recent, right?
Yes, absolutely. So it was really bootstrapped initially. Really bootstrapped. So Bumpin was in a guest room in my house. We still have pictures from the time when we were all scrubbing the floors, and getting the air conditioner to finally work, because this air conditioner had not been switched on for 2 years or something.
Wow.
and it's still very bootstrapped. We went out and bought some second-hand computers. We still have chairs that squeak a lot. We still have tables that are probably too high to be computer tables. And with the electricity situation, our UPSs stopped working, and occasionally we don't have money to get them fixed and so on. During Ramadan, sort of when the work hours are very difficult, these guys come in at 4 a.m. in the morning and start working. So our fuel has been the motivation and brilliance of people that we work with. It hasn't been about money. But once you have that kind of enthusiasm, money does find its way to you. And now Bumpin is funded. It's funded by a friend whose vision of greatness is very aligned with our vision of greatness. He's very enthusiastic about technology. He's a Stanford graduate, someone I've known for many years, and who has many diversified business interests. And he's invested in Alif's Jawbone, among other technology investments he's made. And so Bumpin and Find Along are basically funded by him. The CN Report is funded by a UAE group, and we've raised quite a bit of money, and we're very proud that we did. And they found it out themselves and insisted that they invest. So that's a success.
That's great, yeah.
And Chopal is not funded, and for the longest time, most of my lump salary was going into paying for SMSs that used to go through with Chopal, because 5 million SMSs, the cost adds up. and Lums didn't paying me a lot of money. So I think most of my salary was going into sending SMSs over Chopal because we're not monetizing it at this point in time.
Right.
But I was just excited and thrilled by what we can enable by technology.
But now you've got your first customer, and that's the most difficult.
Yes, absolutely. So now we have Telco Interconnects, and now we hopefully will start monetizing it soon.
Right.
So cost of operations have gone down, and it's very streamlined now. And I hope Chopal will someday also become a big company. So 3 out of 4 companies are funded at this point in time. So now we have enough resources to move into a nice office space, which we're going to do soon enough. Hopefully in a week or so,
Right.
and we invite and welcome all other brilliant guys who think they can become the next Steve Jobs or Bill Gates to try and work in this incubation center with us and do great things for themselves, for people around them, for this country, for this nation, because we really need that at this point in time.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Umar.
And my family understood it as well because I won a few awards. I had run a small company, so they understood it and they said that okay, try it out, but do think about masters as well. So I told Adil that look, we got 2 to 3 months. We'll build something really great in 2 to 3 months, and then your family would be happy that we're making money. My family would be happy, so it's going to be all right.
Right.
And amazingly, he said, okay.
Okay.
And we, from some of our friends and people we knew, there were some really harsh remarks. But at the same time, we had a great mentor, Mr. Bilal Hashmi at FAST, who said that, well, if you build something good, don't worry about business plan. If you build a really cool business plan and make a sucky product, then it's not going to work out. If you don't build a business plan and build a great product, you can make 1,000 business plans out of it, and everyone of each of us.
In fact, he said if you make a great product, you won't have to write a business plan. People would come to you with business plans.
Well,
Well, we were
somewhere in between, I guess.
one of the best books for startups is In Search of Stupidity, and that's what we were, and it worked.
So what happened with this mapping tool that you were
But
going to build?
sooner. I mean, within the day I started, Google launched its My Maps, and the idea was that you can tag your locations just like Wikimap. Yeah. Okay, that was pretty close, but not like that. And I heard from a friend of mine at Google, they were actually doing a collaborative mapping tool that you could draw roads, you could link roads, label them, and
They stole your idea.
well, maybe I was stealing their idea. But the point was, I realized that, well, I am really good, but the guys at Google are not only good, they've got a good visibility.
Right.
So I'll have to tell people a lot about it, that there's a service, why don't you use it and map it? But Google would just need to launch it and they'll be done. They launched it after 1.5 years, and within 2 days, 48 hours of launching, the whole Lahore was mapped. So clearly we did it something, we took a right decision. We discontinued the project. In the meantime, Facebook launched its API.
Right.
So we pulled a few nighters. we spent some continuous hours in the office, and we hacked together an application for Facebook. It was first application out of Pakistan.
Right.
And we said that we are going to stick to our current business plan. If we get around 10,000 users in a month, in a couple of months, we'll be done. We'll be able to monetize it. And well, we launched it on 29th of June, I guess, 27th of June. And on 7th of August, I said that, well,
Which
it
year was
hasn't
this?
worked out that way.
This was in 2007.
2007.
Right.
And we said that, well, it hasn't worked out. We were expecting 10,000 users. We've got 50,000 users.
Wow. Okay.
So it worked great, but then the question was how to monetize it.
Okay.
And we did find some ways to monetize that application. It was for updating your status messages via SMS and getting allowing the other users to send you free SMS.
But it wasn't going to make you millionaires.
That we realized after doing it.
Right.
So the great point is that when you are into it, you can experiment around and learn things.
Sure.
It's not theory; it's practice. So we
Right.
understood that if you are building something on someone else's proprietary platform, you're not going to grow big.
Right.
If you make an application within Facebook, you're going to be small. But if you build a Facebook yourself, then you're going to be.
Right. But it's a great place to start.
Yes, absolutely. Hadn't we done that experiment, we wouldn't have figured it out.
Okay.
So you have to learn swim by actually jumping into the pool, not just observing.
Into the deep end, actually. Okay. All right. So then came CN Report.
Yeah, so that was our big
Umar
idea.
thought, this is enough. Now I have to work with them and make sure they put all this energy into something that's...
Umar was getting actually curious that what are these guys doing in my lab? Because every time he would come in, we would be there. One of us would be sleeping, the other one would be writing something on the computer, and we were there almost 24/7. So he said, these guys are either doing something really fishy or something really great. So either we had to be a part of it.
Okay. So Umar, what did you then do?
Well, what happened then is that, I've always thought very highly of these guys, but I typically, the most precious resource I have is time.
Right.
So I wanted them to succeed, but I didn't have time to invest in anything. So, they had 6 to 8 months by themselves
Right.
to do whatever they wanted to. And by the end of that, I was pretty convinced that they can execute.
Right.
It's not just fluff.
Right.
These guys can actually make it happen. And finding such people is kind of hard, sort of anywhere in the world. So that's when I decided that there's one thing that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I should pitch it to these guys. And I did with full force.
Okay.
So we had several sessions in which we finally converged on what we want to build. I had this I don't want to over glorify this, but I had this vision of the media industry evolving to mostly electronic media,
Right.
because that's more monetizable, and also media that people like you and me can generate.
Right.
So if you and I can report stories, it opens up a whole different avenue for mainstream media.
Right.
We are no longer held hostages to what the editor of BBC thinks is important news.
Right.
We determine the importance of the news. We report news. It's our voice that gets heard, and that itself is pretty exciting.
Right.
And then you can build a business model around it. CNN had just launched iReport, and every so often they get a news which is worth in millions. They get eyewitness accounts of things that no one else has footage of, and so on. And so there is real possibility there, especially in a country like Pakistan. People are hungry for news,
Right.
and for and unfortunately, there's a lot going on in this country, that needs to get reported and be heard,
And there are a lot of young people who are excited about reporting the news.
Absolutely, I completely, they're just
And they're all armed with cell phones.
Absolutely. So I think there's real opportunity there to have disruptive technology that brings about social change,
Right.
and also make money.
Right.
So that's basically what I pitched to Shajil, Adil, and Yasir, who's not here yet, but he's almost as loony as these two guys are.
Right.
And,
You have to be loony to be an entrepreneur.
To do these things.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, we think that's exciting, and we're going to give it a shot. And they built this pretty quickly. I think it took them 6 to 8 months to come up with the first version of this. But let me also, it's not all rosy.
Right.
I don't want to give out that impression, because other people might be watching this video. There are dark days when you're doing a startup. There are days when you're strapped for cash. There are days when you low on ideas. Okay? There are days when you don't know how you will monetize something, or whether someone will be interested in using this. So there were certainly months for which we were looking for opportunities to monetize this. There was a possibility of becoming a media house ourselves, because CN Report is visited by a lot of people every day. A lot of people do report news there and so on. But we didn't want to become a media house because we didn't know how to become a media house. We had no experience of that. We are basically techies.
Right.
So what was most natural for us was to license this platform off to media houses, mainstream media houses, and enable them to incorporate eyewitness accounts in their mainstream media.
How easy was that to do?
Very tough to run. Very, especially
I
in the
thought
local
so,
market.
but yeah.
Especially in the local market, because people don't move very quickly, and it all works on contacts. How business is done in Pakistan.
Not only that, I think it's a snob attitude of only journalists can do this.
That's absolutely right. So there were dark days. There were times when we were like, the value proposition is obvious. We letting this guy use it for 3 months for free. Almost. Why are they still not using it? And we ran around and so on. And then we had a great group of friends. So I must now bring that on as well. There's yourself. There's people like Zafar, Rabia, Imran, Zia, Jawad Sharif. people like Monas as well. People I consult very frequently. I'm not a very cagey guy. I'm not a good businessman. I'll probably never become one. It's just, that's just not me. So I go around discussing ideas, seeking advice and help. And everyone has been very generous with help, advice and time. And as everyone has opened doors for us, have encouraged us to do, to keep on doing what we are doing.
Have they also told you the harsh truth from time to time that, look, Umar, this is not going to work?
Absolutely. No, we are told this almost every day.
That's what motivates us.
That keeps us going. And for instance, we were made introductions to, finally we made introductions to media houses, but people that they trust. For instance, Rabia played a huge role in procuring a first deal.
Right.
And she made the first introduction and so on. And by the time we arrived to make this sale, I think the sale was already made.
Okay.
And because they were already convinced that this is the right thing to do. And most of it was mostly, mundane, working out their financial details, which we weren't very hung up about, and neither were they. So our first client is Sama, and they've just launched iSama.tv.
Well, that was easy because Amir Jahangir is a serial entrepreneur himself.
That's absolutely right. And he's a joy to talk to.
Right.
I had not known about him before. We looked up, I typically try and do some homework on people that I'm going to meet. So I did a simple Google on him. A lot showed up, especially his LinkedIn profile, which was several pages long because he's done so much in his life.
Right.
And then we arrived there, and we didn't know whether he was a techie, whether he was not a techie. He's done all sorts of stuff.
Right.
But he's a joy to talk to. He's as we typically put it, in the company, his vision of greatness is very aligned with our vision of greatness. He thinks that's how media is going to evolve, and anyone who doesn't incorporate this social element of media, where you engage citizens in both generating news, promoting news, ranking news, voting on news, and so on, is going to be left behind.
Right.
And he really very quickly caught on, and more power to them. Hopefully, they'll do more and more things by it and make a lot of money from this.
Right.
And we're now working with the media houses. I hope they also, stop dragging their feet and actually sign contracts and so on.
Now, the first one is the most difficult.
Is the most difficult.
Right.
But then VC found us out. And they invested in our company. So we are well funded. We no longer have to sell our car tires to support us for another month.
You're relieved, right?
So is my PS2 saved.
That was selling his PS2. That's up for sale.
Okay.
That's very personal. That's sold.
We're not going to sell it.
Okay.
It's going to be in our office now.
In fact, we are going to buy more games. So.
That worries me a little bit. But that's that was our sole source of entertainment. So that was up for sale and so on. So
Right.
that was pretty personal.
Right.
But now we are funded. 2 or 3 of these companies are funded.
Terrific. Now, who's this?
I'm Yasser.
The missing Yasser.
Yes.
Okay.
He recently got married and is trying to have a life. Somewhat excuse.
Okay, Yasser. So, tell us your experience with the startup. You're with Scene Report, right?
Yes, I am the COO in Scene Report, and experience. Well,
What has it been like? We've heard the background, how it all started. Why did you become a part of Scene Report?
well, entrepreneurship is something I always had in me. When I graduated from FAST, I started in a startup right away, which failed for God knows what reasons, because it had all the ingredient to be a success.
What was it? Let's hear.
Well,
about it.
it was we had a first client. It was a product for insurance surveyors,
Okay.
and Government of Pakistan had passed a law that all the surveyors have to automate their process
Mhm.
in the next 5 years to come.
Right.
So we had a first client, and we had the product running to some extent in the first 6 months of development, but somehow it failed. I would say maybe it was the immaturity which we had in us, and we were
Maybe
trying
it
to
was
do
the immaturity of the customer as well. Sometimes that's what
No,
happens.
not exactly, because we had the right kind of sales guys with us. We had the right kind of sales pitch, but it failed because mainly because the reason that we were trying to do it part time.
Okay.
So when it failed, I left it and started doing a job which was good enough. Then after 2.5 years, Adil and Shajil and Umar convinced me to join them to start something innovative, and they convinced me to leave that outsourcing based job which is, to be frank, quite boring. So we got together and started CN Report, and since then it has been a great experience because we witnessed the country, the political change in country. We covered long marches and we did a lot of other interesting stuff. And I did this because it was it was more interesting for me, because I had some education regarding journalism, informal education. I love to do poetry, and I love to write. I'm a blogger since 2006.
Right.
And so it always interested me a bit more than others. Come up with a technology which is more reachable to those who don't like to blog or who are not aware of this whole world which exists online. So we eventually did this, and
so have you had a good response? People are using CN Report. Are they putting up stories, photographs?
Yes, they are. We had quite a great response in terms of viewership during Long March,
right?
Which proves that people are really interested in looking at the eyewitness account of something, even if it's a fact that citizen reports are not of that good quality as compared to the professional journalism. But it's also a fact that citizen journalism is taking over the world by storm, and in fact, citizen journalism don't even like to be called citizen journalists anymore. They want to be called journalists.
Right.
And in fact, media traditional media itself is dying, and it has to change with the passage of time. So to keep up with all this buzz online. So.
Give us some examples, guys, of what kind of stories have been reported apart from the Long March. Have there been any scoops that?
There was an interesting story. A guy went to the naan shop to buy some bread. Naan de do. And जो नाम डाल के दिए उसने, तो that was the registration form of a telco company.
Right.
Filled with the complete information.
Wow. Strong privacy issues.
NIC, phone number, everything. So he was like, "ये आप तुम्हें कहाँ से मिला?" And he said, "ये बहुत से पड़े हुए हैं मेरे पास." And there was like a huge pile of those forms,
good God,
filled forms. So he took a picture of that and sent it to us. And we published it. It got quite some information. There were some people saying, oh, this is not because of the telco. It's the franchise that's doing it, and it's not telco is not to be blamed. It's a franchise guy who has thrown these forms out to the out, and so someone brought them. And also then we covered some events, major events.
It had actually a huge impact. I posted that story on my Facebook account, and a good friend of mine in that telecom company actually took notice of it and reported it at a high position, and they took notice of it. And then they figured it out that it's the franchise which is at fault, and they're not shutting the filled-in forms properly. They're just throwing it out for the hawkers.
So then, did any mainstream media pick up the story and cover it in any great detail, or no?
Not yet. The traditional media, especially in Pakistan, is now trying to come up with the stage where they realize that they're not realizing it. The story is around 1 year old. So
right.
By this time, if we get a story, I'm sure it would be published.
Right. Right.
Yeah, but for instance, during the Long March,
right.
sort of the news reports that we were getting were real time with the SMSing and stuff, and we have integration with Google Map and Twitter and so on. So this is where most of the news was being broken
right.
on CN Report. Everyone was moving along in the march itself. We had several people who were just sending us real eyewitness accounts, and there were a lot of rumors going around. I still remember that. A large media organization, mainstream, probably the top media house in Pakistan broke the news that Imran Khan has been arrested.
Right.
And 2 seconds later, we got an SMS from someone who's sitting next to Imran Khan saying he's not been arrested. And you can't get that kind of information unless you actually have someone sitting next to the guy himself.
Right.
And therefore, there was a lot of that going on. I think Dawn started covering some of our pictures and news items on their blog.
Right.
And they, so clearly, other people have started now using this as a source of news. We occasionally get emails from large media houses from elsewhere, outside of Pakistan, asking for pictures of bomb blasts and so on, and we've given it to several media houses.
So you better work out a business model for this, I think.
Yes, syndication is a possible model,
right?
But and it might evolve into that.
Right.
But we also don't, because we license the platform out. Let's say we license it to Sama and we license it out to other people in Pakistan. We don't want CN Report to compete with that. Otherwise, we are sort of eating up another revenue stream of ours.
Right.
So we don't, syndication is possible, but possibly, Sama should syndicate, or Geo or Dawn should syndicate once they get this platform, because that's the value they get out of such a platform.
Right.
And because there is we're very clear that we want to be a software, company, even though people like Yasser have very journalistic germs in it. but we still want to be a software company and want to license the platform off, and that's how we're going to make money. And we're pretty hopeful that, out of the 3,000 or 3,500 media organizations that we have all across the world who can be potential clients for this, even if you back 10%, 20% of that, it's a fairly profitable venture.
Right.
So therefore we don't want to ruin this by going the syndication route, even though that has always been open to us.
Right.
So that's basically that. Yasser, do you want to say more about this?
Besides, CNReport.com for us is just a social movement for those people to make news who want to do it independent of any organization.
Right.
And as we provide integration facilities, so it's always open for bloggers and activists
Right.
to come and have a collaborative platform with us. Besides, we have been getting stories on social, what we call social feedback
Right.
from people, and stories like we had a story about the scheme of Sasta Tandoor.
Right.
People were sending us comparisons of actual 100-gram chapati with the sasti roti they are getting for 2 rupees. So we get these kind of stories which can make a good platform for our government and NGOs to use to interact with that feedback and calculate different things from independent sources.
Then another story we had was the overview of Khuli Kachari that Nawaz Sharif holds every Thursday. So how the people are being treated, whether their stories whether their problems are being solved or not, and their actual accounts. So it was really that story was also very important in that regard, because it highlighted it brought to the mainstream at how the politicians and our leaders are operating. And one example of that.
Do you think our politicians realize the power of this medium, or do you think that's still?
I think if they do, there will be a possible alternative use for social development in Pakistan.
Right.
But I don't think they do, and frankly, I don't think we'll ever be able to convince them because even accessing these guys, explaining the value proposition to them is kind of difficult. But I think some of the more progressive politicians, younger generation that's coming up, could certainly use this, so to get news from their constituency, to connect with their people. Things like Chopal and CN Report are actually made for this. This is
right.
where you can easily connect with citizens and get their voice heard, get their feedback.
And actually provide citizen services that are needed, that people want, rather than deciding, okay, this is what we think you need.
Absolutely. Right. But that none of that has happened so far. We haven't approached the government as yet either. We've just been advised by wiser people not to. But
they will find you eventually.
they do, and we think that they'll actually really use this technology to the broader benefit of the society. Be really open to other people using this platform. CN Report is currently a free platform for anyone to use.
Right.
We do license it out for money to other organizations, but the basic CN Report service could be used for anything.
Have you seen people who are not literate using the platform, sending photographs?
That was one very interesting. Interesting.
Because I want to see how this. Yeah, because I want to see how this can benefit the broader community in Pakistan, not just the literate community.
Yeah, so people use it in very interesting ways. The way we don't think that anybody would intend to use it that way. On Sama, we deployed. We gave it to Sama a month back.
Right.
And one of the person who might not be comfortable in writing English and wanted to write to the editor of a certain program, he wrote the letter by hand in Urdu, took a photograph, and uploaded it directly.
Okay.
So that was pretty interesting.
And what was it about? What was the subject?
It was about some feedback about some program. He was like, his program में ये जो बात की गई है ये ठीक नहीं थी.
Okay.
religious point of view, say, or politically incorrect.
So at least his
Something
voice is being
exactly.
heard.
So the people who don't really understand how system works, that's the beauty of it. जिन लोगों को नहीं पता है कि ये क्या हो रहा है पीछे से, वो भी कहते हैं कि जो तस्वीर ले सकते हैं, they know how to take a picture and they know then they can connect the thing, all those points कि हम लिख के तस्वीर लेके भेज देते हैं and someone will read it. So that missing link, जो that's our purpose, कि the missing link of a common person, and we provide a platform where his voice is heard at a broader scale.
How do you think we can sort of create more of an awareness of the use of this technology to people, say, in the rural areas? Because more and more people have mobile phones now, so anybody can...
The technology is not that big of an issue. Everyone has a mobile phone. Mobile phones are really...
But the education is.
Exactly. So there was a program. So for example, there was a program in India in which their purpose was to go in rural areas and educate people how they can highlight the social issues. So in our case, everyone has a cell phone, and most of those mobile phones are multimedia mobile phones.
Right.
So the education is required that you can highlight the social issues through your video phone, and make a small video, 1 minute video of the social issues of your, maybe you don't have a hospital, maybe you don't have a proper school, maybe you want some teachers, maybe the roads are broken. Just make a small video and don't add anything. If you don't have anything to add, just create a video and send it to by any medium you find feasible. Go to the web, send it through email, send it through MMS, because you can find at least somewhat educated person in even the rural, even the most remote areas. A person who knows how to operate internet, and a person who knows how to send an email or MMS. MMS is the most commonly used medium to share media content.
So Umar, what do you think with mainstream media now using, Sama is the first one and you hope more of them will follow,
Right.
do you think they could start creating this awareness?
Yeah, that would be my answer. My answer is that we provided this platform to now media organizations that have their revenue streams also tied up with this. So their success is tied with awareness of people to actually use this platform.
Right.
So therefore there is that synergy. So now it is up to them that they will go and make people aware, make people make people educate people on how to use this technology, so that they get news from those people. This is good for them business-wise,
And it's empowering.
and they empower people, and that is how I think the social change is going to be brought about.
Yeah.
So I think this will happen organically, naturally, because the market forces are aligned with
Right.
this,
Right.
and that's what we're trying to do. We're basically trying to, therefore, we license the platform out to other people. They were probably sort of 3 weeks when we wanted to be a media company ourselves.
Right.
But then we thought we'll never go to Janawala and be able to educate people. But if they see this on TV, that what they report from here appears on TV the next day, then they'll use it.
Right.
So that's the best way to make the most of this platform.
Right.
But I wanted to conclude, if it's okay by you,
Yeah.
to conclude on basically now this incubator that we've
Yes, I was
formalized.
going to ask you about that.
So what we're doing now, that some of this was planned, some of this wasn't planned.
Right.
Okay, some of this just happened. Okay,
Right.
just because I was surrounded by people who were much better than me, and just wanted this this little ignition to sort of basically make them fire, and they've all started firing now. So I have a lot of faith at this point in time that such innovative things can be done here.
Right.
We don't have to be the country that is outsourced non-core technology business.
Right.
We could be the company we could be the country which incubates innovative ideas which we can sell worldwide and bring a lot of revenue to Pakistan.
Yeah,
We
definitely.
could be the country where a lot of technology is used in the development and the social sector. And with that vision, we have now started to formalize an incubator.
Right.
My dad had built a building, and he didn't know what to do with it. So I said, okay, give it to me. And he did.
Right.
It's 30,000 square feet of covered space. It's a large building. And we're moving all our startups to one space now. And we'll be incubating more. There are many, many rooms there that are vacant. There's not much use of that. We'll obviously install PS2 in one of those rooms. We'll probably get a table tennis table or something like that.
And a small cafeteria.
And a cafeteria for free food for, people who are working without pay and so on.
So, what is the criteria for someone who wants to be incubated and housed in that incubation center?
I think the first thing is for people to basically come up to us and pitch their ideas. My experience is that most of the times in startups you start out by doing something and then then the idea gets refined and you end up doing something else.
Right.
So I think over that process, sort of the plan has to evolve to a point where it becomes a serious plan.
Right.
Beyond just sort of beyond just passion, it is also focused on a real business opportunity.
Right. And the execution is very important.
And once we are convinced that the team can execute,
right,
we can certainly help them refine their ideas to a point where when they execute, they'll be light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
And I think therefore that's a 1 to 2 month process. It's not like people come and interview with us and sort of move in. It'll be sort of 1 to 2 months of engagement where we understand the team, we figure out that this team can execute, feed ideas to them, have ideas heard from them, converge on something that we think can actually work out.
Right.
And is in a space that we are personally excited and enthusiastic about, and can open up doors for them, give them money, some office space, make
pizza and Coke.
Sorry?
Pizza and Coke.
Give them pizza and Coke,
right,
coffee, and have them write a lot of code for them, and eventually hopefully succeed. So that's the model. I haven't thought too much about the business details or how it will work out. I'm a big believer of good things happening almost organically. You can't over-plan this.
Right.
This basically, if you find a great team, I'll be willing to sell my car and give my money to them and have them run with it. But it has to come from sort of just great individuals willing to do great things. People like this.
Right.
You've heard stories. By the end of this, anyone who's watching this would be convinced that these guys were basically born to do this. They
exactly.
all really want to do this. They've been wanting to do this for a long time and had the thick skin to sort of basically just have a tunnel
vision with it
and soldier on.
Right.
Because there'll be bad days, there'll be dark days, there'll be tough times. You'll be grappling for ideas, you'll be grappling for revenue streams. All of that happens in a startup.
So how do you get through those days?
Well, sort of it's not easy, and you also have to have faith. I think I'm very blessed that these guys have faith in me.
Right.
So there are times when I've put my foot down and I've said, okay, for another 2 months, no one's going to question whether we'll ever have a business or not. Okay. Give me 2 months and we'll do something about it. And we've done that multiple times. With different companies. Here at Pump In, Find Along. There are times when it really comes to a head, and someone has to sort of buck has to stop it somewhere.
Right.
And you say if it doesn't come through, I'll put all the money in and we'll make it happen. And I think that's what you need in a startup. But you need people with faith.
Right.
Because this can't happen without faith. This is
and it doesn't happen overnight.
Absolutely not. It takes months, at times years. But anyone who's planning to do something like this, they should read, they should read wisdom from other successful entrepreneurs from outside of Pakistan. Because these guys read Guy Kawasaki a lot. They read others, such blogs. So they follow what Y Combinator does out of US. How they operate, which things make a startup succeed, which things make a startup fail, and they understand the value of patience, faith, hard work. They understand the value of having a thick skin, of having this very focused tunnel vision, of at times ignoring what your family has to say, your friends have to say, what your peers have to say, and have this faith and vision to make $100 million company.
Right.
And it's not impossible. I'm pretty, I'm 100% convinced at this point in time that we can incubate a $100 million company out of Pakistan. And it won't be because I do it. It won't be because he does it. It will be because we'll get a great set of individuals who will have their vision of greatness aligned with this vision of greatness. And once you have that, ideas are cheap. If we can come with 20 ideas in 20 minutes. It's all about getting great people with a lot of passion, enthusiasm to come and put their lives on hold and make a startup succeed. And I think that's the key ingredient.
Great.
And that's what we're looking for in the incubation center as well.
Great. So that was Dr. Umar Saif and the young people he's working with. There's a lot of innovation happening at ITLOW, and especially under the mentoring and the guidance of Dr. Umar Saif. We'll talk to him again because I'm sure this is not the end, but just the beginning. This is Jahara signing off from another episode of In the Line of Wire.